Hello YouTube! Right now you are watching the last episode of our Python and Django project-based tutorial series where we create a community service hours tracking system. It's been a long journey. We have had a lot of episodes over the course of many months throughout the year of 2021 and 2020. And today we're finally coming to an end, and hopefully if you're following along, your project is going to be ending today as well. If you follow along throughout our series, you've seen the progress that we have made throughout every single episode. And today we're going to wrap it up with some reports, with both our HTML reports and PDF reports. So let's get started, and hopefully you can learn a little bit more in this final episode. So basically this page is what I wanted to show you guys in this episode. And in this episode we will go over school hours, which is a continuation from the My Hours episode we had last time. But instead, for school hours, it will show all the posts by every single user in our system. For example, as you can see here, we have the user from our last episode and other users from our entire school, which is exactly why we named it school hours. As you can see, if we click into a user, you can see their post as well, with their specific amount of logs, total hours, and their reward level. However, if we click on the amount of hours to update and delete it, we cannot, since we are not this user. Welcome back to another episode of our Python and Django Community Service Hours Tracking System tutorial. In today's episode, we'll go over reporting, which is basically the last important function of our system. So right now, I'm on a finished website, which you can access at stephenhowe.pythonanywhere.com. And basically, what we're going to be doing is there's a report section on the right side. On this report on the right side, we can also see a similar thing on the school hours. In the school hours, we'll also have a community service awards report, which basically shows a very summarized report. In our free date range report, we can select our date range, and here we have some additional information. The cool thing though is that we can actually print both these reports, which basically turns this report into a PDF, and then now it's easy to print, like any standard PDF. So let's start working on this. Right now on our system, we don't have anything on the right side. So let's get started. So let's first knock out our My Hours reports, which will include the basic HTML report and the PDF one. Again, based on our methodology, we should start here in our URLs. And basically, it's going to be these two lines of code. So it's going to be a simple URL, nothing crazy here. And then it's going to be my report view, and we'll give it a name. Same thing with this PDF down here. I called it my PDF, and this name is my-PDF. Again, for these as views, as shown here, we need to import these at the top. So simply we'll just write my PDF. And although we haven't created this view yet, it's going to take away this error. Although it is still up here, once we create this view, this will simply go away. Now let's head to our views. So let's think what we're going to need for a report. We're going to need the post data, the time, and we're going to have to somehow create this in an HTML file. So if you remember from our episode 1, which is setting up our project, we downloaded a bunch of apps, and one of them was XHTML to PDF, which we'll get into shortly. But for now, here's the code for our My Report. As you can see, it gets our start date and end date from our post, and we're going to have to import datetime here. Basically, if we read through the rest, it's very similar to what we have before, such as the context, which we explained numerous times what that means, and HTML as a return function. So let's import this datetime first. What we're going to need to add is this. From datetime, import datetime, and time delta, which we'll use shortly. Now, for our PDF report, we're going to need these three imports. HTTP response, from Django generic views generic import view, and from .utils render to PDF. Now this one, as you can see, has some errors. First of all, what is .utils and what is render to PDF? This is where we're going to have to create a new Python file. As you see where my mouse is on the left, We're going to click on our app like this. So what is utils going to be? This utils Python file is basically going to transform our HTML reports into a PDF one. Now we're going to do this by including this app that we downloaded, XHTML to PDF. Here we're going to get the template, render it, and return it in a PDF format. One thing that you have to keep in mind when developing these types of programs is that you want to make sure that the PDF you have isn't going to not take in special characters. For example, I use Chinese daily, and sometimes Chinese characters are considered special characters, and they won't show up properly on the PDF. This line of code here, as explained by this comment, will make sure that the PDF doesn't crash when you enter special characters such as found in Latin or Chinese. Heading back into our views, we can now add the code for the PDF report, which is very similar to our normal report, except the difference is we're going to add this render to PDF statement that we added in our utils. For this function, since we're not adding a new form, there's nothing we need to add to our tables because this report is taking our post from our post table and just displaying them in HTML or PDF format. So we don't need to do anything for our forms or our models. So let's go straight to our templates, which was the next step. First, I'll create this HTML file called underscore my report and clear this out. And then I'll also create a r underscore my PDF file. And now let's start adding what we need to add in these HTML files. So how do we get this to translate onto an HTML file? Well, basically, we're just going to have to import all of our data and make them into these table formats. We can do this by adding this long piece of code here, but I'll walk you through it. Basically, you've seen all of these little sections individually. And some that you haven't, such as here, I'll explain it really simply. First, we need to get our header title, our reporting date, all that basic information that we see here into different variables and hard-written code. Next, down here, what are the table columns that we want to call? We want our username, first name, last name, student number, and grade. And correspondingly, we want to match these with the variables, such as username, first name, last name, etc. This code right here corresponds to this first table. Now for this table down here, with more information, such as service date, hours, description, and date logged, we can write this in code as basically the same thing. Service date, hours, description, and date logged corresponding with each post. So this for post and post will loop through all the posts that we have in our post table and provide us with the service date column, hours column, description column, and date posted column. And the difference is we have to list all of these out compared to just only one row up here. For each user, there's only going to be one username, one first name, one last name, etc. But that one user can have a bunch of different posts, which is why we have to include this piece in a for loop. Finally, down here, we can calculate our total with our total hours variable. For the My PDF, it looks awfully similar, but there are some key differences. For example, we still have our headers for our report titles. Next, scrolling down, the information of the user in a table. Next, we have a similar thing to our normal HTML report with our for loop for all the different posts and the service date, hours, description, etc. These lines right here. Now, this is basically used for styling. So you'll see that we have these asterisks under each different column. And finally, to finish up these My Report and My PDF reports, we have to go back to our HTML page for our My Hours and actually display that column. So we go back to our post My HTML and scroll down. We need to add something after this first block content. What we need to add is this long piece of code that contains JavaScript and some basic styling using CSS. So first, we want to give our report column some width. So how much? We're going to give it 4 out of 12. We've gave 8 of these columns, 8 of these imaginary columns for our posts. So that will go from the edge of the screen where our mouse is right now to here. And we'll dedicate these 4 imaginary columns for our reports on the right side. Next, we'll title that reports. And here inside those 4 imaginary columns, we're going to use the full width, which is 12, to display our report. We're going to name it My Free Date Range Hours. And we're going to give it a piece of JavaScript, which is unique. It is going to represent these calendar widgets. Now, these calendar widgets are special because if we click on it, it gives us an interactive way to select the date. Instead of us manually typing in, let's say 04, which is April, the 18th of April, 2020. Instead, we can simply just click with the interactive calendar, and it'll be much easier and much more user-friendly. Now, the JavaScript part. Some of you guys may be more familiar with JavaScript than Python. So basically, I'll just very simply go over this. First, we're going to use the Bootstrap library and have some checks overall, just to make sure that our logic is correct. For example, our end date cannot be before our start date. That just doesn't make sense. Next, we're going to transfer our date format from our calendar widget into ones that our program can understand. And these lines do that here. Basically, what this means is that when we select a date here, for example, this line of characters right here, our program won't understand because it doesn't know what format this is. The piece of code here is going to transfer this into a date format that our program is able to understand. Next, we're going to set our default end date to today's date, and set a start date to a already pre-written one. So right now we have it as January 1st of 2020. So now let's run this and see if this works. If we go to our system and click on My Hours, we have it over here. And so now we can see that our report has shown on the right side. And we'll choose a service date. We'll leave it from January 1st of 2020 to sometime between February 6th and May 10th. So let's go let's say April 23rd. So this should only show one post if our logic is correct, because our end date is before this posted date of May 10th. So now let's open our report. And as you can see, we only have that one post. Now let's choose a different date range. So we'll keep it at January 1st, 2020. And let's go July 11th is fine. So it should show both of these posts. And it does. And it gives our total hours of 504, which is actually going to match this. So that means that our variables have passed over correctly. So now we'll do the same thing for our school hours, which is basically the same as my hours. All we have to do is just change a little bit of names. But for our school hours, we're also going to add this special community service awards report, which basically gives a very summarized report with only essential information such as username, first name, last name, student number, grade, total hours, and their award level. So let's create this. We also want to create a very simple community service hours ranks report, which is basically just going to show the category table. We want these 4 URLs, 1 for the summary, 2 for the summary PDF, 3 for the category, and 4 for the category PDF. And again, we'll have to import this into our views up top. So summary PDF and category PDF. Now let's head to our views and make sure we have all of these ranked correctly. We're going to need 4 corresponding views as well. 1 for our category, 1 for our category PDF, 1 for our summary, and 1 for our summary PDF. And respectively, we're going to have 4 HTML files. Scrolling back through these views, we've seen all of these codes. It's just been recycled. So let's create these 4 HTML files. One is s_category, just keep the name in line. One was s_category PDF, t_summary, was t under summary PDF. And let's add the code that will go in these HTMLs. For the category HTML report, it's very simple. It's an extension of the base HTML. So it's going to have the headers and all of that. And it's going to have a simple report title, report date, and basically just shows all the rows and columns in our category table. For the PDF, we're going to have the same report, but basically in PDF format. For category, just to wrap things up, let's go back to our home HTML and add this to the right side, just as we did for our My Hours reports. So as you can see, on our home HTML, we already have something similar to this, which was the Learn More box on the right side of our home page. And what we're going to add is this right here, Community Service Hours Ranks. When you press this View button, it takes you to a report instead of something like Learn More where it takes you to a page. So basically all we have to do is copy this up here and change a little bit of the links, titles, etc. So just make sure we line them up correct. So in these 4 imaginary columns that we have on the right side, we're going to use all of that with for our title, Community Service Hours Ranks, our link, and a view button that links to our report. In this, we only need the view button, unless you want to add the PDF. So what we're going to do is copy the ones in our My Hours page, put something simple like this, posted / school / category / PDF. So now if we refresh our system, head to our home page, we should get something like this. And right now the spacing is a little messed up, but if you can view it and you can print it out. And also we added a platinum role for total hours of 999. So let's actually fix this spacing issue, as you can see here. So what we can do is make this, let's say 20. You can guess and check from here. And then let's change this view button from the center rather to have a little bit less left margin. So maybe let's go 30%. Something like this looks nice. And finally, for our last stretch of this episode, we are going to add this summary report right here where my mouse should be. Let's do that by adding our HTML for both our summary and summary PDF first. Again, the summary HTML is an extension of the base. We'll have our titles and match all of our fields with a loop for every post. Because for every user, we're going to have to loop through every post and add up their total hours, etc. So first, we're going to have for every user, they only have one username, first name, last name. So that's that. Next, they only have one profile. And then for total hours, they're only going to have one of those 2. Finally, we're going to check if that total hour amount is what category basically. If it's less than 1, which is the bronze level, they're going to have no reward. If they're between 1 and 2, they're going to have bronze. If they're between 2 and 3, they're going to have silver, etc. And basically that's it. Same thing for the PDF. We'll have our titles match these column names with our data by looping through every single post. So now let's check this out by adding these 2 reports visually on our school hours page. And this can simply be done by adding a new block content and then end block content 2. Posted / school / summary. Actually, I have a slash before that too. / posted / school / summary / PDF. A long URL. But as you can see, our reports has shown here. And will this open button work? It does. And as you can see, since we have 2 users, we're going to have all of this information, which includes their total hours and rewards level. The PDF function should also work and provide the same information. So now I'm going to add this free day range report to the school hours, which is basically the same steps as these My Hours one. And I'll give you a final tour of the system that we've worked for such a long time now. and give you some options in the future to hopefully customize this to your liking. So now this school free date range is also up. As you can see, the basic HTML works and the print function also works. So basically, this finishes our community service hours tracking system. Our menus are consistent throughout both of these projects. And we have a login, logout function as well. So how can you take this system to the next level? Well, you can add a bunch of new tables, which we told you how to do by using models, forms, etc. You can add a bunch more pages, such as if you want to type out how you made the system. If you want to add some text-based pages, you can simply do that with HTML. If you want to add more reports, you can go back in this video and learn how to do that yourself by just basically changing the names and what data you want to incorporate. So basically, this system has a lot to improve on the fact that you can change so many things, add so much customization to your liking. This is the great thing about Python and Django, I think, because you can add on to what has already been created out there on the internet. And I hope that this project allowed you guys to have some inspiration into thinking how you want to incorporate this into your daily usage, or just as a project you want to have fun on and add your own custom code. So I hope that this project gave you some inspiration into how you want to improve your coding and really use this system as a template for your future coding projects. We've covered from URLs to views, the methodology of how you should develop a system, how to connect this with business in the real world, how to create reports from data, how to style your pages. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this series. I certainly have learned a lot about going back into the coding, how to refine things, and hopefully how to properly explain all of this logic to you guys. So thank you for watching this series. And in the future, I hope to see your project in the comments description as well. See you guys. And until next time, bye-bye. I couldn't see, now that you're by my side.